What was the weirdest topic Dan Aykroyd talked to you about on set?
Aliens.
Oh my God.
UFOs and aliens.
So this movie, way more than Afterlife, is really a combination of generations, coming together. So I want to ask the new Ghostbusters about the old Ghostbusters. What was the weirdest topic Dan Aykroyd talked to you about on set?
Aliens.
Oh my God.
UFOs and aliens.
That was pretty weird. I talked to a lot about kind of motorcycle clubs across the country and all of the different ones, particularly in New York. A lot about old trains and car engines and vehicles, and then real, truly, afterlife kind of stuff and ghostly stuff. And he's seen
a lot of UFOs.
He's a fascinating man.
Yeah, he is.
That's great! Actual physical contact!
I liked hearing his SNL stories as well, but I didn't get like an SNL story. I got more of like a...
How he felt?
No, I got like whenever I would ride my motorcycle to SNL every day for years, and he was like, I'd take my motorcycle and I would drive it into the lobby of my apartment and into the elevator and just take the elevator up and then park my motorcycle in my living room.
It's insane.
So that was a really fun one.
Is Bill Murray as intimidating as he seems?
I don't think of him as intimidating, but he is special. I mean, you just kind of never know.
I think he is intimidating in that, he's a real legend. I mean, I'm such before I ever met him, I was just a huge, huge fan of his. I think like so many of us are, that sometimes when you meet people that you just admire and love so much, it's hard not to be intimidated, not by anything they're doing, but just by the nature of who they are. And he kind of operates on a whole other level and in a whole other way. You're in might be a little like, how do I go about it? Now, he couldn't be better and funnier and cooler, and just, I'm crazy about him.
Yeah.
But it is a little like, when I first saw him, I just went, oh my God, that's Bill Murray.
It's all very surreal.
Which of the original stars nerded out the most over being back in the Firehouse?
Dan.
Dan. For sure.
Yeah, for sure, Dan. I mean, but then again, he's just like so excited to be back, like with any of it, whether it's the Firehouse or Ray's Bookstore, just getting to talk about ghosts with us and getting to improv in scenes. Because whenever he adds lines or adds things to a scene, it's not just adding a line, it's adding a whole like lore bomb of this is exactly how we do it with the plasma, and if I was a ghost I would materialize and I would be a class and like, going on and on about the science of it all. So it's like he knows this franchise inside and out, so just having him on set, like he's always saying things about like the logistics of it all and the science behind the ghost busting, and he's always really excited to be there.
Annie too. Annie Potts was really moved by it. I think she was really struck by just how well the production design team did, and they made it really look like it did in 1984, and I think she was really taken aback.
They all kind of were. I mean, we were, it was fun to just kind of, it's so fun to work on this stuff with them, and you just can't believe you're in the room, but to sit back and actually listen to conversations they're having when they first saw it, and they were looking around at the props and like, oh yeah, and then remember when we were doing this, and you hear them kind of go down memory lane a little bit amongst themselves. It was very special. It was really cool to hear that stuff.
Did being with them in that environment back in New York City, back in the Firehouse, did it make you guys feel like more like real Ghostbusters?
Yeah, I felt probably more like an imposter, I think, but a welcomed one. It's really, it doesn't feel real. It still feels like I won a contest.
Yeah, I feel like an imposter in most cases in my life, but so I've never really felt like a real Ghostbuster.
Many, many, many years from now, one of the franchise's original stars returns as a ghost to live in your house like Slimer. Who do you hope it is and why?
I would take Ernie Hudson, please, because he's one of the most gracious and laid-back, lovely human beings I've ever met, and I think he'd be really easy to live with.
That's a really good answer, and I think I might choose the same thing, because the other thing is that, if you have a ghost and and it's saying, and he's ooh, boo, we're talking to you.
Great voice.
His voice.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really realized until we were really working together on this one. What a voice on that guy.
Yep.
It's so soothing and it's so deep and
it's a
kind
great
of,
voice.
it's got a great voice. So I think that if you were in bed and trying to sleep, which is really when the ghosts like to come around, the ooh would actually maybe help you sleep because it's calming.
And Bill would be too unpredictable, and Dan would he knows too much about ghosts, so he'd be really hard to trap. Yeah.
I think Ernie would be nice, like a calming presence. Yeah, he would be an
He's
insane.
gonna be such a fun ghost.
He'd be so happy.
Yeah, he'd be so stoked.
Yeah.
He'd be like, just so happy to be there.
How did it feel to find yourself back in the Firehouse with your fellow original Ghostbusters?
It feels great. I mean, it's been 40 years, it's been over half my life. It's been an active part of my life because fans have never let me forget. They're out there and I hear their stories, and so for us to be able to come back together and to participate, me, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Annie Potts, Bill Atherton, that means not just that we can be a part of, but that we're able to carry the packs and be there. And the new cast is just truly amazing, talented, and I know that the whole franchise is in good hands, whether we're there or not. But it's just a real blessing.
Winston Zeddemore was a guy hired to do a job.
Right.
You weren't even on the original film's poster.
Right.
And now he's promoting paranormal research, keeping the Ghostbusters in business, and looking after his friends, both professionally and personally. What's it been like seeing his evolution from employee to what I think, especially in this movie, is the heart and soul of the group?
Thank you so much. I mean, that's how I feel. But I'm so thankful to Sony and Jason Reitman for acknowledging. I wasn't on the poster and a whole bunch of other things that I was sort of trying to deal with. Winston came in looking for a steady paycheck, and then he discovered that these things are real. But over the 40 years, he hasn't remained the same. He's evolved. He's managed to be very successful, make a lot of money, but he loves the Ghostbusters, and he recognizes that this is a little bit deeper than just running around catching ghosts. He's set up a lab to research. So Winston is multi-layered, and they've allowed the character to become that. I know my life has changed and grown in so many ways, but I'm so thankful that it wasn't just coming back and trying to play that same character from 40 years ago.
This movie, as we just said, it really centers him in a way that I don't think previous Ghostbusters movie has. What does it mean to you personally to get to kind of be in the spotlight in one of these movies?
Yeah, for me personally, the one thing my grandmother who raised me asked me to do was to always remember that I'm an example of what is possible. And so she said, if you're going to be an old person, be a healthy old person. I don't want to see you out there, struggling. You live your life in a way so that you can help others. Winston Zeddemore in this film is an example of what's possible. I mean, not just 40 years past, but he has made something of his life. He's worked hard to be a better person, and he cares about the people who were there for him. He has a real love and a care for the guys who gave him a job when he most needed. And I think that comes through. I think we'll look into Winston and find he's very involved in a number of charities, but he's a person who cares. Part of this movie is him talking about the golden years. We recognize that we're at a time when we need to let somebody else run around with the backpacks, but we still have a place and an obligation. But of course, when the world is threatened, then we have to step up. But I love that about the character.
It's like you knew what my last question was going to be. You have this really moving scene in Frozen Empire with Dan Aykroyd, where you two talk about whether you should be spending your golden years fighting ghosts or enjoying retirement.
Right.
And it really kind of blurred the line between fiction and reality in the best way. How much of that moment was rooted in your real life relationship with him and, in talking about your own career?
Yeah, I think that's, I recognize that I'm not going to be able to do things that I could do, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I shouldn't have to. I don't want to. It's important to stay healthy, which I always try to do, and to give my little input, but time is inevitable. So, and to say to Danny, who's so enthusiastic, Danny Ray stance in this movie is like, he's still 15, and he's still so excited. But I also am saying to him, you're not 15, and we have to kind of grow up. There is a place for us. I have a lab here. We're researching. There are things that we can do as seniors. Running up and down stairs with a backpack on is not what we should be doing. And of course, Ray Stantz doesn't want to hear it because he just loves it.
It might be tough hearing it from you since you look like you haven't aged in 40 years. Like we look like we're the same age. It's just not fair.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I think it's so important, like I said, to be an example, to remind people it's not doing a lot, but just doing a little bit each day to try to be a little bit better than yesterday. And in time, it'll reflect in your skin, in your body, and in your attitude. So that's what I try to live by.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time.